Take three middle-aged petrol heads with a death wish, hand them a blank cheque, then stand back and film what happens. It's an odd premise for a TV show. But Top Gear has won hundreds of millions of fans around the world. It can be seen in 170 countries, from Mexico to the Middle East and from Estonia to Iceland. Yet, in the country that's generally considered the spiritual home of the motor vehicle, the show has barely made it off the grid. Tonight, Steve Croft from CBS 60 Minutes gets under the hood of this unlikely hit for a uniquely American take on what makes its wheels go around.
There's nothing on television quite like Top Gear. What began as a boring automotive program in the 1970s has morphed into this.
That's the most amazing road I've ever seen.
Viewers tune in to watch extravagantly filmed segments, driving the smallest car ever made through the BBC's offices, or testing the toughness of long-haul trucks by smashing one through a brick wall. The show's popularity has turned a trio of aging automotive journalists with schoolboy senses of humor into worldwide television stars.
Now, I like the idea that us three are arbiters of taste.
Yes, we are. Look at this.
First among equals is Jeremy Clarkson, a big, bombastic, chain-smoking newspaper columnist who is one of the best-known commentators in the UK.
I mean, you said some pretty outrageous things. All BMWs are driven by people who are psychologically unfit to drive anything more powerful than an electric razor.
Yeah, that certainly was the case. I would change that to Audis now, but it was the case with BMW. You need to look at why did that person buy a BMW? They are what my son calls winners. They like to win. I don't want to go to squash, I want to win. And there's no sense of, well, it was a good game. I want to win, and I'm going to be cross if I lost. There's always that BMW thing.
It's unbelievable.
Clarkson's regular foil is James May, a connoisseur of cars and superior engineering.
What's the fastest you've ever driven in a car?
259.2 miles per hour.
What kind of a car?
Bugatti Veyron Supersports.
Despite this achievement, his colleagues call him Captain Slow for his pedantic, professorial bearing and absent-minded behavior. A running joke has them running into the back of whatever car he's driving.
Sorry.
Richard Hammond is the shortest and the youngest of the lot. He's called the hamster.
Three middle-aged-ish men exploring their passion for cars and how cars matter to other people.
This all-male lineup strikes some as subliminally sexist, yet somehow Top Gear manages to attract a huge family audience that is 40% female. Broadly speaking, the show uses cars and the people who drive them to comment on contemporary society. Take those slow-moving, road-hogging caravans. Over the years, they've turned the destruction of them into an art form.
I know in America it's a big deal, camping, but here, really, camping is just the end of the world, because it always rains, and I can't see why that's a holiday. Come on, everybody, we're going to go away and defecate in a bucket and live in a field in a small box. Oh, God.
They all agree that one secret to the show's success is their often toxic relationship,
Sorry, I was perfectly straight with you about this. You're now going to get macheted to death.
which was on full display during a road trip in Bolivia.
James is killing Jeremy.
The chemistry that exists between Richard, James and I has rather taken over. Now, you can't really engineer chemistry. That just happens. We really genuinely loathe each other. Come on, Richard and James, everybody!
Top Gear is taped inside a hangar at an old RAF airfield outside London. This is the realm of the Stig, the show's professional race car driver who doesn't speak.
It's a nice day for a drive.
Driving 130 miles an hour and screeching around the hairpin turns, we didn't even hear a grunt.
This is fun.
France! We can see France!
Some of their elaborate stunts belong in the Guinness Book of World Records. They successfully crossed the English Channel in a Nissan pickup truck they converted into an amphibious car. They raced across the spine of Africa in junk heaps they bought on the local economy in Botswana.
Yes!
But one adventure stands above the rest.
The absolute best thing we've done, North Pole.
Let's go to the pole. Go. You were just driving along and you start to hear that creak. As the ice started to creak, if the car had gone through, we would have been finished.
They brought along gin and tonic to keep them warm.
You've got gin!
And ended up taking a lot of heat for drinking while driving.
Well, you see, that's the thing. You use the word driving, but technically it's actually a frozen ocean, so it's sailing. And you can sail if you've had a few drinks.
The show manages to careen into controversy almost every week, usually for something Clarkson said. He's offended everyone from the Prime Minister to truck drivers, who took offense at this characterization of their profession.
It's a hard job. Change gear, change gear, change gear, check your mirrors, murder a prostitute, change gear, murder, check your... That's a lot of effort in a day. You sit back and wait for the complaints. But if you start to pay attention to everybody's concerns, you end up with something bland and boring. So you sort of have to ignore everybody in order to do the show how we want to do it.
It's so quick, it can destroy your entire face.
One of the most hair-raising adventures was in the U.S. They were each given $1,000 to buy a car in Miami and drive them to New Orleans.
OK, it says here we must not be shot or arrested as we drive across the proud state of Alabama, but that we will get bonus points if we can get one of the others shot or arrested.
Clarkson came up with the idea of painting slogans on each other's cars that were designed to test the limits of Southern hospitality.
Here we are, sweet home Alabama. Pew, pew, pew.
We stopped at a gas station and a woman came out walking towards me and Jeremy.
Now, are y'all gay looking to see how long it takes to get beat up in a hick town?
I'm not gay, I'm married.
NASCAR sucks, country and western is rubbish. Guess what? You're in a hick town, man.
We're gonna die now. By then, pickup trucks full of people with guns were turning up and sort of milling around. And a massive guy in the middle of the forecourt had begun a countdown from 10, 9. I don't know what he was going to do when he got to 1. He was operating at the very limit of his capacity, counting backwards from 10. But whatever was going to happen at 1 was going to be bad. So we ran. We just ran away.
People really threw rocks at you.
They really threw rocks at us. Yeah. Actually, that's the most frightening and dangerous thing we've ever done. I did fear for my life slightly.
But the episode that had the critics screaming for its cancellation put Richard Hammond behind the wheel of a vampire jet car going 300 miles an hour. Then a tire blew.
It was touch and go.
It was a bit touch and go. There was in a big coma. It was horrible for my wife and for my parents and my daughters. There was briefly a call for Top Gear must end, but that very quickly died away because I don't think there was the appetite for it from the public.
Hammond eventually recovered and returned to the show 4 months later to talk about the accident.
I think it was very important that we said to the world, if it can go that wrong, even in our silly, glossy television world, then it can go wrong in the real world.
But despite the obvious risks to life and limb, they've all elected to carry on.
We've had this arrangement so that you'd have to announce it on the following week. This week, unfortunately, James May was killed making that item. And then you'd have to pause momentarily, but the next word, and we've all agreed on this, should be anyway. So you go, James May was killed, they're making that item. Anyway, the new Ford, and just move it along. So it's basically, he came, he made some noise, and now he's been killed, a bit like a housefly or a rock drummer. They just come, they make noise, and they die. And we'll do the same thing, and then we'll find somebody else who's either slow and pedantic, short and irritating, or big and bombastic to come and fill our shoes.